My name is Susan Aldridge. I am 61 years old, and I never thought this stage of my life would begin with such disgrace. On the evening of my son Andrew's 36th birthday, I stood in the very kitchen I had spent years caring for, clutching pieces of a broken plate while nearly 100 guests stared at me. For the first time in my own home, I felt like an intruder. The celebration had begun innocently enough. Andrew had recently been promoted, and his wife, Vanessa, had insisted on throwing an extravagant party. Neighbors, co-workers, and friends flooded through the door, filling every corner with noise, clinking glasses, and polite compliments. Vanessa floated through the rooms in a spotless white dress, her smile polished, her voice warm and sweet as she accepted praise for the food and the tidy home. But I knew the truth. My hands, still aching from days of chopping vegetables and scrubbing silver, were the ones that had prepared the meal and polished every surface. I had worked quietly in the background, believing it was my role to support, not to shine. As I tried to carry a plate of food into the dining room, Vanessa's voice sliced through the chatter. "Susan, what are you doing here?" she asked loudly enough for everyone to hear. I froze mid-step. "I was just going to sit down," I murmured, my voice small even to my own ears. Her smile tightened, her eyes hard. "With the guests? You know your place is in the kitchen." The laughter and conversation stilled. Dozens of eyes shifted toward me. My cheeks burned as humiliation swelled inside me. Then, without warning, Vanessa's hand darted forward, knocking the plate from my grasp. Food and porcelain exploded across the tile floor. "Clean it up, useless old woman," she hissed. My knees trembled as I bent to gather the shards. Around me, whispers resumed, laughter bubbled again, and the party carried on while I crouched on the floor like a servant in my own son's home. For 6 years, I had endured Vanessa's sharp remarks and her icy contempt, believing my silence was protecting Andrew from household conflict. I told myself it was better this way, that if I endured, Andrew could be happy. But in that moment, while shards of porcelain cut into my fingertips, I realized my silence had only protected Vanessa's cruelty. That night, something inside me shifted. I would not crumble under her humiliation. Instead, I would rise from it. For years, I had hidden an envelope in my dresser, a gift I had intended for Vanessa, filled with the savings I had scraped together from my widow's pension. I thought offering it might finally soften her heart, but kneeling on that kitchen floor, I knew the envelope would no longer carry money. It would carry the truth. And when the time came, that truth would shatter her carefully built facade. For 6 years, I swallowed every insult Vanessa hurled at me. She mocked the way I dressed, sneered at the meals I cooked, and rolled her eyes whenever I spoke at the dinner table. Whenever Andrew was around, she played the role of the perfect wife, kind, attentive, and endlessly supportive. But the moment his back was turned, her mask slipped, and her cruelty poured out like venom. I told myself enduring it was worth it if it meant Andrew's happiness. After all, hadn't I raised him alone after his father died? Every decision I made was for his well-being. So when Vanessa snapped at me to re-wash the dishes because they still smelled old, I bit my tongue. When she told me I was a burden who should be grateful to have a roof over my head, I turned away instead of fighting back. But silence has a way of breaking a person from the inside. One afternoon, while I was folding laundry in the guest room, I overheard a conversation through the half-closed bedroom door. Vanessa's voice was low, almost playful, speaking words that didn't belong to a wife. "I can't keep sneaking around like this. Andrew is clueless, but still, you have to be more careful when you text me." There was a pause, then the muffled murmur of a man's voice. I couldn't make out his words, but Vanessa's laughter followed, sharp and cruel. "Relax, he'll never find out. He's too busy believing his mother's the problem." I froze, my heart pounding. For a moment, I convinced myself I had misheard, but as days passed, the pieces started to fit. The nights Vanessa claimed she was working late, the sudden perfume that lingered on her clothes, the hushed phone calls she ended the moment Andrew walked in. I wanted to tell my son, but the fear of him turning against me kept my lips sealed. Vanessa had already planted seeds of doubt in his mind, often making comments like, "Your mother worries too much," or "She imagines things." If I accused her now without proof, Andrew might dismiss me entirely, and I could not bear to lose him. So I watched, quietly, carefully. I began to keep notes of her outings, the times she disappeared without explanation, the names that appeared on her phone when she thought no one was looking. Each discovery cut me deeper, yet it also fueled something I hadn't felt in years: resolve. I was no longer just a silent bystander to Vanessa's cruelty. I was a witness, and one day soon, I would be ready to testify. That evening, while Vanessa laughed with Andrew over dinner, I studied her face. Every smile, every word of affection toward my son was a performance. And in that moment, I made a silent vow. I would no longer shield her with my silence. Vanessa thought she had broken me. She thought my endurance meant weakness. But she had underestimated the strength of a mother's love and the power of a woman who has had enough. The more I observed Vanessa, the clearer it became. My son was living with a stranger, a woman who wore loyalty like a costume, who smiled sweetly at family gatherings, then sharpened her knives behind closed doors. I could no longer sit in silence while Andrew's life unraveled under her lies, but I knew better than to confront her without evidence. Vanessa was clever, manipulative, and skilled at twisting words. If I accused her without proof, she would cry, feign innocence, and paint me as a bitter, aging woman who resented her youth. Andrew, eager to defend his wife, would side with her, and then I'd lose him completely. So I sought help from someone who could uncover what I could not. The next morning, I sat in a quiet office with blinds drawn halfway, sunlight slanting across the desk of a private investigator named Martin Hale. He was a man in his late 40s with tired eyes that had clearly seen the worst of people. I told him everything: the insults, the controlling behavior, the late nights, and the overheard conversation that haunted me. When I finished, his expression was grave. "If she's unfaithful, I'll find out," he said, sliding a contract across the desk. "But once I show you the truth, you can't unsee it." "Be ready for that," I signed without hesitation. The following days crawled by. Vanessa continued her charade, smiling at Andrew, barking orders at me, while Martin trailed her movements in silence. Each time she left the house, my stomach twisted with dread, wondering what he might discover. Then, one evening, Martin called. "Mrs. Aldridge," he said, his voice steady but weighted. "You were right. She's meeting someone." My knees buckled. Though I had expected it, hearing the confirmation shattered something inside me. A day later, Martin slid a folder across his desk toward me. Inside were photographs, grainy but undeniable. Vanessa, in her signature white dress, stepping into the arms of another man outside a hotel. Vanessa, laughing freely in a way she never did at home, her hand laced with his. Vanessa kissing him under the dim glow of streetlights, careless and bold. I stared at the images until my eyes blurred with tears. Rage and grief tangled inside me, but beneath them, a steely clarity formed. These photos were more than proof of betrayal. They were my weapon. Still, I wasn't ready to confront Andrew yet. The moment had to be right, undeniable, so even Vanessa's silver tongue couldn't spin the truth. That night, I returned home and set the folder in the bottom drawer of my dresser. For the first time in years, I felt powerful. Vanessa thought she had me cornered, humiliated, silenced. She thought my loyalty to Andrew would keep me chained forever. But now, I had the truth, and the truth was stronger than her lies. The stage was set. Soon, Vanessa's perfect facade would crumble. The night of Andrew's promotion dinner carried an air of celebration, but beneath it, I felt the undercurrent of war. Vanessa had spent weeks preparing, fussing over every detail: fresh flowers in crystal vases, a pianist hired to play softly, a long dining table dressed in candlelight. To the guests, she appeared flawless, the devoted wife hosting in style. To me, she looked like a queen sitting atop a throne of lies. Andrew arrived just before dinner, tired but glowing with pride. He kissed Vanessa on the cheek, thanking her for the effort she had poured into the evening. She accepted his gratitude as though she deserved it all, her eyes sparkling with the secret I already knew. Then Michael Turner walked in, carrying wine and grinning broadly. The sight of him made my stomach turn. Andrew clasped his shoulder warmly, blind to the betrayal standing right in front of him. I waited. Patience had been my prison for years, but tonight it became my weapon. Dinner unfolded with practiced perfection. Guests complimented the food I had cooked, and Vanessa smiled gracefully, claiming credit with the kind of ease that had long gone unchallenged. Michael entertained the table with his jokes. Glasses clinked, conversations hummed, and from the outside it looked like nothing short of success. But I wasn't here to play along. When Vanessa rose to make a toast, I knew the moment had arrived. She raised her glass, her sapphire dress glittering under the chandelier. "To my wonderful husband," she announced proudly, "whose hard work provides us with this beautiful life, and to Michael, who has always been like family." Polite applause rippled through the room. I stood. My apron still clung to me, but my voice was clear, cutting through the chatter. "Vanessa," I said evenly, "I think it's time you opened this." The room fell silent. Forks rested mid-air. Every eye turned toward me as I drew the envelope from my cardigan. Vanessa's smile faltered, but she reached for it, no doubt expecting money, a gift to add to her glory. Instead, she unfolded the photographs. Her face drained of color. The first image showed her and Michael outside the hotel, their lips pressed together. Gasps echoed around the table. Andrew leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What is this?" he demanded. Vanessa fumbled with the papers, revealing more: bank statements with money flowing into accounts abroad, and finally, a marriage certificate. Another man's name beside hers. This isn't what it looks like," she stammered, her voice shaking. But the silence in the room told another story. Michael's confident mask crumbled, and Andrew's hands trembled as he gathered the papers, each one striking like a hammer against his trust. Vanessa collapsed into her chair, her polished image shattered. Michael avoided Andrew's eyes, guilt etched across his face. I rested my hand on my son's shoulder. "The truth always comes to light," I whispered. For years, I had lived as though my voice didn't matter. But that night, my silence broke, and with one envelope, I destroyed her kingdom of lies.